What was the arrangement before WTO? What was the arrangement?
International Trade Organization.
Yes, there was a no before this World Trade Organization. Which was the agreement before that? Because WTO
That
GATT, yes, WTO came into 1995. So before that, there was a GATT, right from 1947. And in 1995, GATT replaced WTO. Sorry, this WTO replaced GATT, not GATT replaced. GATT was initially from 1947 till 95. GATT was there, and then WTO came into existence. So WTO replaced GATT. So when WTO was introduced, almost 150 countries were the member. So almost 90% world trade was covered under this WTO. And basically, after the Second World War, many countries got down together to work on ways and means to promote international trade, because most of the countries were badly affected because of this world war which happened between the countries. And the result was the signing of this General Agreement of Tariff and Trade, that is GATT. It was by 23 countries in 1947. So let me put, before WTO, there was a GATT. Please do remember, before WTO, what was there? There was a GATT. GATT stand for General Agreement of Tariff and Trade. And there were 23 countries in the 1947. And India was one of the founder member of GATT. So we were the founder member of GATT. So over the year, membership of GATT increased, and by 1994, it touched to 118 countries. 118 देश 1994 पर्यंत झाले. 1947 ला फक्त 23 देश होते गॅट मध्ये. किती देश होते? In 1947, only 23 countries. And then over a period of time, till 1994, 118 countries, 118 देश, 118 countries, they become the member of GATT. And then in 1995, GATT replaced, and then WTO came into existence. And when WTO came into existence in 1995, 150 member countries were there. So almost 98% world trade was covered. About WTO, WTO's head office, where the head office of WTO?
Geneva, Switzerland.
Yes, it is in the Geneva, which is situated in Switzerland. Then objectives. Go through the objectives. as you've gone through this objective of WTO, so as you read this objective, that WTO wanted to make this international trade freer and more transparent and more predictable in the world. So GATT was along concerned with the promotion of international trade through tariff reduction, doing away with non-discriminatory practices among trading partner and evolving rules to counter bad practices. Going to the next. Now go through the function of WTO and then we'll understand this. Everyone please read this. Is it visible? Functions of WTO? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Please go through the hope that you have read these functions of WTO. One of the important function of WTO, World Trade Organization, is that to facilitate the implementation, execution, administration, and operation, and further objectives of this agreement. So the agreement of WTO, by hook or crook, it should be implemented, it should be executed. Then only developing countries can benefit out of this agreement. And while working on this function of WTO, there is a specific structure of this WTO. Structure is nothing but the hierarchy, or we can say organizational chart. On the top, there is a ministerial conference. And this ministerial conference, based on Singapore ministerial conference, saw the interested member of the WTO negotiating on information technology agreement and launch of work program. Below that, then there are committees who looks upon the relationship between trade and investment. Then there is a committee who interact between trade and competition policy. And then third committee which looks after transparency in government procurement. Now, the first ministerial conference, it was in Doha. During this Doha ministerial conference, they also adopted a declaration on TRIP. TRIP is what? Trade related intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights, IPR. In short, we know IPR. IPR basically it goes with the innovation. There are some innovation in the science and technology. So such innovations one can have a right so that no one can copy that innovation. So it is known as IPR, intellectual property right. So TRIP, known as trade related intellectual property rights, agreement on public health and decision on implementation related issues and concern. And then fifth ministerial conference at Cancun was made mainly to be a forum to review the progress of negotiation under the Doha Work Program mandate at Doha, but ended in fiasco as serious differences emerged in the ambiguation levels of WTO. So there were some dispute between the countries, and because of this dispute, it ended. Then sixth ministerial conference that was at Hong Kong called for conclusion of negotiation, which was launched at Doha in 2006. Now, what are the agreements this WTO has implemented? So we'll try to understand the agreement on agriculture. So this agreement provides framework for the long-term reform of agricultural trade and domestic policies over the years to come, with the objective of introducing increased market orientation. This agricultural trade provides for commitments in the area of market access, domestic support, and export competition. The members have to transform their non-tariff barriers like quota into equivalent tariff measures. In earlier lecture, we have learned the quota. So that quota they transform into, and these tariffs resulting from this transformation as well as other tariffs on agricultural product are to be reduced on an average by 36% in the case of developed country and 24% in case of developing countries. So for developed country, it was 36%, and for developing country, it is 24%. The reduction were required to be undertaken over 6 years in case of developed countries and 10 years for developing countries. So there was more period for developing country. It was 10 years and 6 years only for developed country. So this was decided in this agreement. The least developed countries were not required to make any commitment for addition. In a word, there are some countries who are neither developing nor developed. So they are far away from this development. So such country, ज्याला आपण असं म्हणू शकतो की मागासलेले. So such least developed country, they need not to follow any commitment for reduction because already they are facing problem. So why they should be impose this kind of agreement? So this WTO has taken this initiative. Second agreement, it was on trade in textile and clothing, that is multi-fiber agreement. Now this particular agreement provides phasing import quotas on textile and clothing in force under the multi-fiber agreement since 1974. So now it is almost 49 years, 50 years, 49 and 50 years. Over this period, this transition in this multi-fiber arrangement is happening even till date. As a result of this agreement, quotas on textile and clothing have now been abolished. So there is no quota on textile and clothing. They are abolished now. And this could happen because of this WTO. Then third agreement on market access. Now what is this market access? The member nation will cut tariff on industrial goods on an average 30%. So this member country will have to cut down tariff at average rate 37%. Then some country might have 38%, 35%, 36%, but average was 37%. The USA, United States of America, and European Union will cut tariff between them by one half. Then there was an agreement on TRIM. TRIM stand for Trade Related Investment Measures. TRIM stand for Trade Related Investment Measures. Now this particular agreement, which calls national treatment of foreign investment and removal of quantitative restrictions. It identifies 5 investment measures which are inconsistent with the GATT provisions in according to national treatment and general elimination of qualitative restrictions. Then so these many agreements they could perform. Now let's know the contribution of WTO. Contribution to WTO. So one of the important contribution of WTO was impact on every economic activity, and impact, it was the positive impact because it was boosting economic growth and activity. So this way WTO has contributed to this developing country. Then second one is higher quality standards. Naturally, if there is no quality product, it will not have worldwide market. So higher quality standard should be maintained. And how that quality standard to be maintained, that kind of guidelines were also given by this WTO. And this way the WTO made country comfortable to deal at an international level. Next contribution of WTO is that comparative advantage due to lowering of tariff. And we have seen in first chapter that there are two type of advantage: absolute advantage and comparative advantage. So WTO is also highlighting comparative advantage due to lowering of tariff. If tariffs are lower, if charges are lower, definitely it will be the win-win situation for each and every country. So that was the idea behind this tariff. Now, as a member of the WTO, now in case of India, India bound about 67% of tariff lines, whereas prior to Uruguay, it is one of the round name, Uruguay, it is the city, Uruguay, only 6% of the tariff line were bound. And for non-agricultural goods, with a few exceptions, ceiling bindings of 40% of Valora on fixed. So there was a flat rate on this. Then WTO also introduced quantitative restrictions, which is stand as QR. Q stand for quantitative, R for restrictions. This QR on imports maintained on balance of payment grounds were notified to WTO in 1997, and that is almost 2,714 tariff lines. We'll go to the next slide. Now this slide shows us the difference between GATT and WTO. GATT, which signifies two aspects, and which are those aspects: as a body and as a formulator of agreement. As a body and as a formulator of agreement. Whereas WTO and which are those functions: trade policy review mechanism and built-in mechanism. So trade policy review mechanism and built-in mechanism. So basically the mechanism was focused by WTO and GATT was focusing agreement. Second difference, GATT throughout its duration, right from 1948 to 1994, it was ad hoc and provisional. So it was temporary. From 1940 to 1994, it was temporary, provisional. Whereas WTO and its agreement were permanent. So this is the second difference between GATT and WTO. So WTO agreements are permanent, whereas GATT agreements are. What is the status of GATT agreement? Can you hear me? Am I audible? GATT agreements are temporary. WTO are permanent. Please do remember. Third difference, GATT, there is a contracting party, whereas in WTO, there are member nations. In GATT, the party who is following contract, they are involved. But in case of WTO, country will have to become a member of that WTO. Next difference, GATT controlled by power lobby, like USA. So USA has that power. So every time this GATT was influenced under the USA, whereas WTO, it is in democratic in nature. So there is no power lobby. There is a democracy. All members' interest and their opinions are considered. Now let's move ahead. Can you see this PPT? Is it visible?
Yes.
So it is IPR, intellectual property right, IPR. As I told you, IPR basically it is for invention, discovery, some research. Those research and discoveries are being reserved. Rights are given to that particular scientist, and if that scientist belongs to that country, so the rights are with that country. Now here, what is the objective behind this IPR? So that no one should copy someone's invention, no one should steal someone's discovery and have a benefit. So these things were controlled in IPR. So it can be commercially exploited also. Now how commercially exploited? Suppose Mr. A, who has invented, say, let's take example of say fridge, very modern fridge. So that Mr. A, he will go for making IPR of that fridge innovation, maybe for 10 years. So next 10 years, he will enjoy the benefit out of this patent. And then after 10 years, it will be open for everyone. Then this Mr. A will not have any benefit. So this way, commercially exploited by Mr. A. So there are many innovations for 5 years, 10 years, depending on the nature of invention and discovery. Another point of IPR, it can be transferred between parties, license to other parties. So between party, we can transfer this IPR. IPR come into existence after an application has been made or registration after. So there is a process at the international level. There is an agency. To that agency, one will have to make application, stating all information about his invention and how it is useful to the society. That kind of thing, information is mentioned in the application, and that application is filed. Then this IPR committee, they scrutinize the application, and on the basis of that, they allow IPR. So many scientists, researchers, they use this intellectual property, and out of this intellectual property, they are safeguarding their income. Had not been introduced this IPR, then these intellectual people would not have earned expected money. So we can say this is always good for intellectual people who are always busy in discovery and invention. Only we need to follow the process. Now, let us understand what are the components of IPR. The first component, that is patent. This patent generally for 20 years. Suppose if there is a machinery which is used for a particular operation, particular activity. So that kind of machinery patent can be taken for 20 years. So in next 20 years, without your permission, no one can use that design. After 20 years, then it will be open. Then anyone can use your design, anyone can copy your design. But within 20 years, if you are having 20 years patent, then no one can copy your design. And if someone copy, then you can see in the code. You can make complaint against such person. But naturally, at the international level, whenever there is IPR filed, then it is declared that this particular innovation is under IPR. So in that case, no one dares to copy that technology. In addition to this 20 year, there is also another process, that is supplementary production certificate, which is issued, which can be given extension up to 5 years. Suppose if 20 years are over, and you feel that whatever machine you have invented, again it will have a good scope in future time. So you can extend that license for next 5 years. So on the basis of extension, it can be renewed for next 5 years. And for this renewal, naturally, the person will have to pay fee to that agency, because the agency, they have their own expenses. They are having office, then they are appointing staff. That staff is supervising, monitoring the innovations done by the researcher. If someone is violating or stealing that innovation, then this committee can raise the objection, and they can file complaint against that person in the court. Now another component, that is trademark. You might have seen every company, corporate company, they have their own trademark. Trademarks are there. Now even Tata Motors, they have developed their trademark in the abstract letter T. Likewise, each and every corporate, they maintain their brand, they maintain their trademark by going with this legal protection. And this legal protection for any kind of brand, it can be for 10 years. Any brand name for 10 years. Maybe you are taking legal protection for shape of the good, then ingredients of that product, that can be trademark. You offer any product, you will see that there are trademarks shown on their packaging. On the packet, on the box, there is a trademark. Then design. So after trademark, a new design of a manufactured article, generally it is given for 25 years. Design right are given for 25 years. Within this 25 years, no one can copy that design. If someone copy, then that person can be sued in the court. He can be penalized. So that kind of protection is given. Then copyright. Copyright is generally for the book, publishing article. So some copyrights are given, so that the strangers are prevented for the reproduction of original. So they will not reproduce the original. And this cooperate for 15 years. Another example, literature, like the books written by several authors. So those authors, they copyright of that particular book. That is the example of copyright. Now we will go to the next slide. Now this is TRIP. TRIP stand for Trade Related Intellectual Property Right. TRIP. Under TRIP, patenting has been extended not only to plant varieties but to the large area of microorganism as well. Microorganism means what? It refers to very small forms of life. Say, for example, bacteria, virus, fungus, and small plant. So such kind of small forms are known as microorganism. Then patents in all three fields. So which are those three fields? Number one, agriculture. Number two, pharmaceutical. And number three, industrial biotechnology. So here, patents are generally taken: agriculture, pharmaceutical, and industrial biotechnology. In case of agriculture, there are number of varieties of rice, basmati and Delhi rice, and so on. Ambe Mohor. There are n number of varieties of rice. So these varieties, basmati rice or Ambe Mohor, these kind of varieties can be patented. And nowadays MNCs, they are even making patent for their seeds also. In earlier days, seeds were generally preserved by the farmers. The farmer himself, he used to preserve seed for his next cultivation. Earlier previous farmer, they never used to buy seeds from the market. They were using their own seed. But nowadays, farmers are buying seeds from company and Mahabij and so on. Have you heard this company name? Mahabij? Mahabij? Anyone? And there are also seeds for cotton also, cotton. And these seeds are being developed and sold by these MNCs. There is a huge business. So this was about the TRIP. TRIP is highly weighted in favor of patent holder. TRIP protects interests of MNC and developed country. So global economy under domination. So that was a TRIP. Now we will discuss about the TRIM. TRIM stand for Trade Related Investment Measures. Developed countries, they have achieved most of the business, everything from TRIM. So TRIM is silent on the front of balancing. So a particular country, if maximum balance, if it is with that country, so TRIM never criticize in regards to the country. It maintains silence. Another feature, TRIM designed to protect the interest of foreign investors, particularly MNC. And in last session, we have seen the managing MNE, multinational managing MNC, multinational companies, corporate, that we have seen. Now let's continue this stream. Drain of foreign exchange, reserve of the developing countries. So it drains the foreign exchange reserve of the developing countries. So this developing country may not be find useful of in regards to this stream. Then trim undermine of any plan or strategy of self-reliant growth. It undermine of any plan or strategy of self-reliant growth. Trim also has an adverse effect on balance of payment. So balance of payment is not being maintained. So this was all about TRIM and TRIP, which are the agreement at international level. So today we discuss WTO. We learned that WTO head office is in Geneva, in Switzerland, and we also seen the objectives of WTO, function of WTO, and when WTO exists in world. That year also we have seen. Which year WTO came? Yes, any one of you? In which year it came? In which year WTO came? Yes, please.
1995.
Yes, 1995. WTO introduced at the world level in 1995. And in 1995, 150 countries were the member of this WTO. And almost 98% trade was covered by this WTO. 98% is very big percent. Only 2% was left. Only 2% trade was left out. But 98%, it means we can say almost every trade was covered by this WTO. We can say 100%. But since it is given the statistical information 98%, so we are considering 98%. So 98% is also almost complete. Yes, so before we end today's session, if you have any doubt, you may ask. Anything related to today's topic? And in case, if no doubt, then we'll close our session, and then next part we will continue in the next session. Thank you and good night to all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.